Okay, on this tutorial we're going to talk about creating a side. Now a side is essentially like a open pocket. A pocket has a boundary that you remove material to a certain depth. A side is removing material on a side of a curve to a certain depth. It's kind of like making a step on your part. So to create a side, we need to draw a boundary. So we use our geometry tools to draw a boundary. And this is going to be an open boundary. So like I said, we just use the tools and draw what we want to create as our side. And again, most of this stuff will come from your print. So here is the geometry we'll be using for our side. Before we can do our side, we have to curve this. Let's go into curves. And this is an instance where you would use chain pieces of geometry into an open boundary. So let's click this button. Pick first geometry segment, which is your first line, and then you pick your last geometry segment, and it curves all the lines in between. Hit create. So now we have our curve or a boundary for our side, and we're going to be removing the material on the side of this boundary to a certain depth. Let's go into features, and under from curve you have side. That's the only way you can make a side. Hit next, have your curve selected in your box. If not, go out and select it. Next, machining side. Just like a chamfer or a round has a machining side, you have to choose a machining side. What side of this boundary do you want the tool to cut on? In this case, let's cut on the left hand side of the boundary, so we need to change the machining side on this. So have this highlighted and click this button that says switch machining side, and you'll see the arrow flip. Hit next, offset from Z, just like offset from Z on any other feature. That's just the Z location that you want it to be at. Next, again, just like boss and pocket, you have draft angle, chamfer, depth, and bottom radius. Let's take this to a depth of 0.75. Next, here's all your strategies. Climb mill, rough pass, finish pass. This is all typically left at default. So it looks good. Hit next. It chooses the tools for me. Hit next. And again, it just goes through the tools and the feeds and speeds. I don't need to look at that right now, so I can hit finish. Here's your property box. I don't need in here right now, so I can go ahead and click on OK. And so I have my operations now for my rough pass and my finish on side 2. So let's look at what this actually looks like when we machine it. Let's flip it to our isometric view. You can see I have a depth on that side now. And if I run my simulation, you can see that tool cutting out the material on the left side of the profile that we drew. Now, just like with bosses and pockets and just about anything else that we mill out to a depth, we need to set a Z increment on this side. And again, a Z increment is just how much material it'll be taking off per pass. And this again is based on the tool diameter, which is 1/3 of the tool diameter. Z increments is typically 1/3 of the tool diameter. So we'll double click on rough pass 1, find our rough pass Z increment, and sets it as 1/3 of the tool diameter. We're using a 1/2 inch tool, so about 0.15 will give you a good estimate there. Click set. You must click set, apply, OK. So now when I rerun it, you can see it's stepping down by increments of 0.15. Actually, it's probably a little bit more than that, but let's see. If you want to see how far down each step is going to take, you can click on this Details tab, and this is all the operations that is going to be happening in your program. And you can see here's rough pass 1. We're going down 0.75 inches in 5 steps at 0.15 each. So it is taking an even 0.15 per pass. If if we were to change that side to, let's just change it to 1/2 inch. So I can double click side, change my depth to 0.5. It should keep everything else the same except for the depth. What FeatureCam is going to do is divide the number of steps evenly per depth. So we can look here, it's going to go 0.5 inches and 4 steps at 0.125 each. So it divided it equally rather than having 3 steps at 1.15 and that 4th step at some odd number. Again, this just helps keep your tool wear even. It helps keep the spindle load consistent. So we have our Z-ink changed on our rough pass, and we have our side. And so that's how you create a side. Just to review it real quick. Once you have your geometry drawn on the top of your part, you want to curve that geometry with your chain pieces of geometry into an open boundary. I already have that curve, so I'm not going to do it again. Click Features, click Side, Next, make sure you have the correct curve selected, Next, Machining Side, which side of the curve do you want the machine to actually cut on. Change that with this button. Offset from Z, depth, all of our strategies, which typically we leave as default, and then it tells you what tools it's going to use. And that is how you create a side. And just to finish this out, it tried to take it all in one pass. That was 3/8 deep. Again, we need to make sure we change our Z increment. Always change your Z increment. So there it is, taking off the depths in the 3 passes. So it's going down about 1/8 inch each. Okay, that was side. Thank you.